This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Again, I appreciate your patience as we work through this new technology. This program is being sponsored by the Sioux Locks Visitor Center Association and the Lake Superior Marine Museum Association. If you have questions or any comments, we would invite you to put them in the chat, and we will answer them at the end of the program. The Sioux Locks Visitor Center Association and Lake Superior Maritime Marine Visitor Center Association help us operate our visitor centers at the Sioux Locks and the Duluth Ship Canal. They help us with delivering quality programs, improving our facilities, and educating and informing the public about the missions of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and how those missions impact the daily lives of all of us. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is a corps within the U.S. Army with a mission, and I'm going to read this to get it right, to deliver vital public and military engineering in peace, partnering in peace and war to strengthen our nation's security, energize the economy, and reduce risks from natural disasters. Overall, the Corps is divided into divisions, which are made up of various districts. We park rangers in Duluth and the Sioux are in the Detroit district, which is shown on this map. And as you can see, it's further divided into area offices. I am here at the Sioux area office, which is up here, right on the Canadian border. And Sarah, who is my counterpart in Duluth and will be doing the second half of this presentation, is located in Duluth. Roughly 5% of the personnel in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are active military members, regular Army soldiers. The other 95% are civilians. This is a photo that was taken a while ago when some of our senior leadership in the district had a trip to Washington, D.C. The smiling guy right up front is our district commander, Gregory Turner. I mentioned the Corps mission to strengthen our nation's security, energize the economy, and reduce risk from disasters. At the Sioux area office, we have a couple major missions that support this overall goal. The most visible, and the one people are most familiar with, is operating the Sioux Locks, connecting the raw materials of ports on Lake Superior to mills, power plants, and other industries on the lower lakes and around the world. Another component of our navigation mission is maintaining 75 miles of federal channels through the St. Mary's River and 13 harbors on Lake Superior, Michigan, and Huron. In this photo, we have a crew working just above the Sugar Island ferry dock, putting in ice booms. And if you'll take a look at this little map, you'll see the jurisdiction and coastline that the Sioux area office is responsible for on those three lakes. It's a pretty big mission, and we have a really talented team that takes care of that. The Sioux area office also has 2 hydropower plants. The small one in the lower photo was built in 1932, and the larger one was fully online in 1952. About 5% of the power we generate is used to operate the Sioux Locks. The rest of it is sold to the local utility and provides baseline power to the eastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan. An interesting historical note is that there have been hydro plants at the Sioux Locks since 1887. So we've been doing green power since before it was cool. To fulfill all these missions, the Sioux area office has about 130 full-time employees with all kinds of special skills. Some of them you might expect, like engineers. This here, the fellow in red there, is Kevin Sprague. He is our area engineer at the Sioux area office. And of course, we have lock and dam operators, who are probably some of the most visible people working at the locks. And you may have talked to some of them if you've watched at the Maclock. These are a great bunch of guys, and they are a wealth of knowledge. You may have also noticed our tugboats, and so we have deckhands, deck equipment operators, and of course, tugboat captains. There's Dan up there in his pilot house on the O&M Frederick. Behind the scenes, we also have carpenters, electricians, and machinists who often have to bring the shop to the lock. Here's some of the one of the electricians. There's one of the machinists. And when I mentioned sometimes they have to bring the shop to the lock, this is Jeff, And if you'll notice, he is working on a scaffold that is suspended about 60 feet above the lock floor. That's the MacArthur lock, which was dewatered in 2015 for some unexpected repairs. And of course, you can't bring the lock to the shop. So he brought all his gear and set up and worked there. There are dozens of mechanics and maintenance workers as well who fix everything from the 200-ton lock gates, which is what this fella here is getting ready to do, and the historic structures. Right, these guys are working on replacing some plaster in the Davis building, which was built in 1914 and is part of our National Historic Monument status, landmark status. And they do everything all the way to fixing toilets in the visitor center now. I never really thought to take pictures of our maintenance guys fixing toilets, but I did get a picture of Sean here laying the new carpet in, I think 2016, when we got new carpet for the visitor center. These guys can fix, make, or replace almost anything that goes wrong here. One of the things that a lot of our visitors admire, I should say, are like commanders and senior military people, is we are so self-sufficient. We have a huge shop, we have a carpenter shop, and we're able to fix and repair almost everything we need to do. We also have survey technicians, crane operators, and wildlife biologists. People don't always think of wildlife biologists as having a role in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, but they are a very important part of our regulatory function, and they go out and routinely check and handle permits for any kind of work that might impact the navigable channels on the Great Lakes and adjoining wetlands. And last, but I hope certainly not least, to fulfill our last mission, which is operating a public park and visitor center, we have a park ranger, yours truly. If you have met me before, hello, and thank you for joining us. I have worked with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as a park ranger at the Sioux since 2009. I have a background in Great Lakes Maritime History and Museum Studies. I got a master's degree in history from Western Michigan University, and being a park ranger at the Sioux is truly my ultimate dream job. My main duties throughout the year, I do a lot of research, writing, I design exhibits for the visitor center, and find new and interesting ways to help people understand the mission of the Corps and what the Sioux Area Office and the Corps nationally does to help people throughout the country. On that note, I'd like to turn this over to my colleague in Duluth, and she will tell you about the Duluth Area Office. Okay, are you ready, Sarah?
Yep, I'm just pulling up my presentation. Wait.
And again, thank you everyone for your patience.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Summers-Lakey, and I'm the director at the Lake Superior Maritime Visitor Center in Duluth, Minnesota. We are part of the Duluth area office. Our visitor center is adjacent to the office building, and we've also got a vessel yard near our property. I've been the director of the visitor center for since late last year. The previous director took another job in Alaska, so I was transitioned into that after working as a park ranger for about 5 years. So it was a good transition, and so far things are going well. So we have 3 main missions at our area office. We've got construction, operations, and maintenance and recreation. And okay. This photo is a picture of our area office, which was built in 1906, and just a little interesting piece of history. This building was the first building built specifically for Army Corps of Engineers use in the country, in the nation, and where the construction area is responsible for maintaining the federal shipping channels and structures not only in the Twin Ports of Duluth and Superior, but in other areas around Western Lake Superior, including both shipping and recreational harbors. So the construction office consists of surveyors, project engineers, and construction representatives. And the surveyors go out on survey vessels and survey all those navigable federal waterways and determine through their data collection what areas need to be dredged. We also have project engineers, which oversee construction contracts and work with the contractors to make sure that the projects are on schedule and within budget. And we also have construction representatives, which are the field people. They are on the ground and at the projects, making sure that safety guidelines are being followed and everything else is going good on the ground. That's a picture of 2 of the survey crew staff members that are on the survey vessel. And some of the recent projects that we've had going on include creating a piping plover habitat. The piping plover is an endangered Great Lakes shorebird, and the Corps has been working with other agencies to use that dredge material and move it to an area off of Wisconsin Point and Superior. So they're building about an 8-acre area specifically for the piping plover so that they can forage and nest there. We're also, the construction section is also working on some beach nourishment projects. We've got a very large, about a 7 or 8 mile long natural sandbar right in front of our harbor, and so they are also using dredge material to nourish the beaches and try to prevent some erosion and further loss of those beaches. At our vessel yard, which is on Park Point, this is where all the handymen and women work. They also have the floating plant here. Some of the buildings here are date from 1904, and the entire yard is considered a listing on the National Register of Historic Places. The floating plant consists of 3 main vessels, and these vessels work around the Great Lakes and work on projects such as repairing and building breakwaters and piers and things like that. They help with fixing things related to Great Lakes navigation, primarily. The Derrick Barge H.J. Schwartz was built in 1995. This vessel is you can see she's got a crane on her, so she does all the heavy lifting. This vessel is 150 feet long. And in this next slide, you can see her in action in a second. All right, here she is lifting some boulders and placing them strategically in places to prevent erosion and damage to the shoreline here. Next, we have the Hammond Bay. This is the smaller of the 2 tugs. This one was built in 1953, and she measures 45 feet in length. This vessel is a lot more maneuverable than some of the other larger ones, so it's a good vessel. They also help to wrangle some of the other vessels in the floating plant, but she can also run to shore to pick people up and do things like that since she's more maneuverable. And then we've got the larger of the 2 tugs, the DL Billmeyer. This was built in 1968 for the Navy and was acquired by the Corps of Engineers in 1995. She measures 110 feet in length, and the Billmeyer is the primary mover of the floating plant, either pushing or pulling by tow. All right, and finally we've got the recreation mission of the Duluth area office in our Lake Superior Maritime Visitor Center. Our visitor center was built in 1973, and it was originally intended to be to provide some restroom facilities for the Canal Park area in Duluth. And they decided to add another level to the building and put some interpretive exhibits up there. Bonus points to anyone who can identify which vessel this is coming into the harbor. It's identifiable. It's got one identifiable feature. We typically receive about 500,000 visitors each year. And last August, we welcomed our 20 millionth visitor. So what do we do at the Visitor Center? Our mission is to provide information on the maritime activity of Lake Superior and the Great Lakes region and the Corps of Engineers' role in their development. In doing so, the Visitor Center helps preserve the maritime heritage of the region while providing visitors with intimate contact of maritime activity. And we do that by providing visitors with a vessel schedule. One of the main reasons that people visit us is to watch these Great Lakes cargo vessels come in at the Duluth Ship Canal. So we provide scheduling information for those vessels, as well as vessels coming into Two Harbors and Silver Bay. And these are available on a website, harborlookout.com, as well as a phone number, which will be listed later. In addition to that, we also create short and long-term exhibits to keep things fresh. The top right photo is one of our newest interactive exhibits. It's a Sulak simulator. So our visitors on the western side of the lake get to see what happens on the eastern side of the lake. And the control panel that you see is the actual control panel from the 1943 MacArthur lock at the Sioux. So that's a really exciting exhibit for us. The lower photo is a picture of our harbor wall, and we try to provide a lot of information to visitors about incoming and outgoing vessels. We've got a map of the entire lake so they can see vessels on the other side of the lake. We've got the schedule. We've got information about what our office does and an interactive screen so they can explore the port. And also monitors up on top so that they can see activities in different harbors. So those are some of our more recent exhibits. And then we also do educational programs as part of our mission. And those come in the forms of special event programs, which are held 2 times a month. There's a natural resources themed and a history themed program. We also are going to be doing outdoor tours and having a discovery cart outside. One of the things that we're trying to improve on is our outdoor presence, and by providing additional tours on the weekends, as well as having a discovery cart out there with a ranger that can hit those goals. So these are also monthly themed. And then we also have traditional programs which we provide for schools and other groups, and these require reservations. We also, in addition to groups that come to us, we can also go to groups and provide these programs to them at their locations. And we also do a number of annual events. One of them is geared toward water safety, which is another part of our educational mission, try to keep people safe around the water since we've got this big lake right outside our visitor center. And these are the people that make everything happen. We've got a really great group of park rangers. We've got 6 park rangers, 4 are full-time and 2 are still students, so they're in school. So we've got a young group, and they're really eager and take a lot of initiative, and they're really motivated. So we've got a lot of fun and new things coming out of our visitor center recently. In addition to them working at the information desk, they also get to do some fun things like take field trips, and the photo on the left is a group of them on the Coast Guard cutter Alder this past spring when they were breaking ice in the harbor. So they bring a diverse group of talents to the visitor center, which provides a lot of good interpretation for you guys. And I'm just going to leave the screen up here for a few minutes. So if you're interested in more information, we've got a couple of websites. We've got our official USACE website, as well as our supporting association, the LSMMA. They provide a lot of support in terms of programming and events. They provide volunteers and also help us purchase consumable things for events. We're also on social media, on USACE's Facebook page and Lake Superior Marine Museum Association. On the top right is our vessel schedule information, harborlookout.com, and our boat watchers hotline. And then if you have any questions or think of any after this presentation, this phone number goes to our information desk, and it is currently being monitored, even though we are all still teleworking right now. So that's all I had. Is anyone, if you guys are thinking of any questions, you can put them on our chat.
So far, it seems that everyone's questions have been answered in the presentation. That or no one's willing to try to stump the Rangers. I do invite you to try to stump the Rangers. And really, again, appreciate you joining us for this first trial run of this new program. As you can see on the slide on the screen, we have something I think which will be far more exciting next week, which is Harbor Happenings, and I think Sarah could probably better describe the content of that program.
Sure. Our Ranger Scott will be doing this program, and this is going to be basically just a current events, what's happening in the harbor, how many boats have visited so far, maybe comparing that a little bit to last year. And especially this year, we'll be talking a little bit about how world events like COVID-19 has been affecting shipping. And we've noticed a number of vessels that would have regularly been working, but are in long-term layup right now because there's been layoffs at some of the mines. So that's learn a little bit how those factors are affecting Great Lakes shipping. So that'll be an interesting program, I think, next.
And Sarah, you got a question. Someone wants some insider information about where in Duluth they could go to watch ships being loaded.
There is no official spot. Back before 9/11, a lot of the docks were a lot more accessible, but each dock has their own security and restrictions and things like that. So going across the I-35 bridge into Wisconsin, you can sometimes see vessels loading coal or grain at some of the docks over there. And then on Rice's Point, you can drive by and sort of see some of the vessels getting loaded, but it's difficult to go to a dock and just watch there because they will probably chase you out because of security. But yeah, those are a couple of spots that I would recommend. Also going down 35 South, you can see the Canadian National Ore Dock right to the left, and sometimes you can see vessels going there. But again, there's no good places to really stop and watch without just driving by. You're welcome.
Anybody else? Will the Sioux Locks Visitor Center be open at all this summer? We do not know. We are kind of like everyone else, waiting, watching, and preparing. We have been working on plans for both the Sioux Locks Visitor Center and the Duluth Visitor Center to have plans in place when the stay-at-home orders are lifted and when social distancing is no longer a factor. Right now, we're looking at hopefully being able to open the park very soon in the next few weeks. We will announce that on our Facebook page. Initially, I don't think that the bathrooms will be open, but we have a phased in strategy because we do have to increase janitorial contracts to be able to allow people inside any parts of the facility. We are also working on a phased approach to opening the visitor centers, which may involve setting up outdoor interpretation booths to allow for social distancing, but still be able to answer questions and make some brochures and materials available. At the Sioux, I am currently working on some ways to take some of the interior exhibits in the visitor center and put them in new formats and put them out in the park for people to be able to access, even if we are unable to let people into the visitor center. I hope that answers your question. I wish I had some fabulous date and more promising thing to tell you, John. Well, if that's it, I thank you again, everyone, for being our guinea pigs on this first run of this new virtual visitor center. And I hope you'll join us again next week. Oh, how many park rangers at the Sioux? This is one of my favorite questions. There is one park ranger at the Sioux, this gal. And I like to dub myself as the Lone Ranger. I'm actually the only Corps of Engineers park ranger for the entire state of Michigan. And I like to say it's because I'm that good, but actually it's because we have contractors that do all the heavy lifting in our visitor center. And you have probably run into all of those people who are fabulous and are experts. Looks like that's it. Thank you again. And we will be posting this to YouTube and hopefully to our Facebook pages in case you want to share it. And also hope that you'll join us again next week. Thank you.